This is Bob and Ben coming to you with a review of Opeth. One of my favorite albums of
Opeth.
theirs, Blackwater Park, man. This album I
Yeah.
heard is based upon a book that was written in 1858
Oh,
called The Woman in White. I've never heard of this book, but I heard it was a great inspiration to this album.
yeah. I've never heard that. It says on my notes, um, and use Chat GPT for some of it. So guilty, whatever. But I didn't know that, man.
In this album, it starts off with the Leper Affinity. And this track, as you say all the time, really sets the tone for the album. I mean, it shows everything that you're going to experience throughout, but even more intensely. I love the changes from going heavy to soft throughout this album.
They, I mean, anybody that's ever listened to Opeth knows that these guys. I don't know if you can call them one-trick ponies, if that's fair to say, but that is in the sense that they're a one-trick pony. That's a multi-tool Swiss Army knife of dynamic sounds. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't know how they do it. I mean, I do know how they do it. You know, they've inspired the piss out of me to write, throughout the years. But yeah, I mean, this first track, dude, from the fucking say, I think you get like what 8 seconds of a build up and then it just right into it.
Right.
And then yeah, I mean the song is heavy and then they just go into just these weird progressions. I say weird, they're beautiful, they're haunting, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it does. It sets the tone for the album, man, and
And
really
this
good album.
song,
Just a what?
this track really makes me think of the movie Beauty and the Beast, man, really.
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah. It is. It is a Jekyll, man, for sure.
and then and then Bleak is a great follow-up to this song because it just continues that same wave and you ride it on through, and this even becomes more sonically involved.
Bleak is one of those tracks that I've never heard them do a song anywhere even close to it. In fact, I think. Oh man, this is a bold statement because there's so many good ones to choose from
Sure.
throughout the years. I think Bleak might be my favorite Opeth song, and the reasoning behind it is well the reasoning is really just I ramble enough as it is, man. I'm a fucking rambler. um this album came out after my granddad died, and I was living with my grandmother in her house, and she had a lot of old books and old shit that well fucking old people have,
Mhm.
and but it was stuff that I remember from my childhood, and I don't know if it's causation or correlation or whatever. But this album specifically, I remember the first time I heard it, I came out of college. I was leaving art class, and a guy had recommended it, and so I downloaded it from LimeWire or fucking
Mhm.
Napster or whatever. And I just remember hearing Bleak and it providing a soundtrack to kind of going through some of that old shit, and the sounds of this song. I really like this song, by the way. The way this song sounds and is written in the chorus parts and the clean singings and the harmonies that he uses. I think it's Steve Wilson too
Yes.
that is actually singing on this, and it reminds me so much. I mean, I can close my eyes right now and see in my mind's eye that upstairs area that I used to live with this song playing, going through some of those old fucking books and through closets and shit that the room I lived in, and man, it's just such. Every time I hear it, it does not get old, man.
Yeah, and the thing that really sticks out, as you mentioned, is them background vocals. They are so tight and so solid on this track.
Is that fair to say though that they've never done a song like this? They've done a million songs like other songs, but
Mhm.
this one is just kind of it's out there in left field. Maybe that's why it stands out for me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it definitely is a standout track, and definitely one of my favorites of their entire catalog as well.
Oh, killer.
And then we come into Harvest, which now we just totally changed. And we go into this softer acoustic track, but lyrically is so strong and so powerful.
Yeah, so it was the first entirely clean vocal Opeth song um, up to that point, and as I said, it was a massive risk, especially in 2001. But
Hmm.
you know, coming off of Still Life, which is one of the best albums there ever was. I mean, Still Life is just a phenomenal. Um, these guys were basically kids when they wrote all this shit anyway.
You're right.
And yeah, being a death metal band, I guess in the early 2000s, and then risking that with singing, I could see how that was could be completely detrimental. A lot of other bands did it. People trying new shit around the early 2000s.
Sure.
Metallica is one that comes to mind. Hey, let's get on this fucking bandwagon or just do something kind of crazy, and it just doesn't work, whatever. But it's defined Opeth sound.
And what pulls it off is the lyrics are so heartfelt. There's so much
Yeah, I don't
emotion
really.
in the singing.
Yeah, like I said, you're gonna have to be the lyric guy because I don't, as a guitar player and the musician, I don't really pay attention to the lyrics, whatever. But I don't care if they're singing about death; they're beautiful. Yeah.
Well, throughout this album and looking at the lyrics, it's just describing the atmosphere of the time and looking at all the bad things that were going on in it and how it affects us in everyday life. And that's something we're going through today.
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle of bullshit. But I mean, in comparison, 2001 to us back then was a lot. It was a lot more polarizing,
Hmm.
especially at the time. It was for me personally too. I mean, all of that. The 9/11 shit happened right before my granddad died, and some other things happened, and it was just such a monumental time for me. And I mean, God bless this, Blackwater Park as a bookmark,
Yeah.
for my time in history.
Yeah. And it makes me want to go read this book because, man, if there's something about on these terms was written back in that time, I'd love to hear it because just knowing that the way the time was in history at that point, that was a very straightforward, bold move to do a book at that time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then we come to the Drapery Falls, which is my second favorite track on the album. I love the way this song is constructed from beginning to end. The talk back and forth between clean vocals and unclean vocals. It really sets the tone and makes the lyrics even stronger.
It says it's often cited as the quintessential Opeth song, and I guess which is funny because no matter how progressive Opeth gets or has been,
Hmm.
they've got a very distinct way of doing things that includes a lot of peaks and valleys. That's one of the things that that's why they're one of my favorite bands is um, is because they are able to be so brutal and carry so much grace and grandeur and all of these emotions in these tracks. And I personally, and this is just my bias shining through, but I don't think anybody does it as good as Opeth. I don't think anybody ever will.
Right. And it's just because you realize in listening to Opeth that the music world was theirs to choose and to pick from because there's nothing that band could not cover as far as style or technique.
Oh yeah, there are definitely some oddballs. All of the interviews that I've ever watched and sat, listening to Michael talk. I mean, he basically says he doesn't know what he's doing, but it's clear,
Yeah.
it's clear that the son of a bitch knows exactly what he's fucking doing. He may not, he's got these emotions and these songs in his head.
Mm,
None of the shit was hey, this is a happy accident. You don't get that lucky,
right.
that many times.
Sure. And they've had such a fulfilling career doing it.
Oh, amen.
And then we come into Dirge for November, which this is kind of a oddball track for me because it it takes the emotion of the previous tracks and heightens it and brings the most power to it, but yet it doesn't have as many contrasting motions through it. Musically, it's very solid, but it's also very straightforward. So it's not in the same song structure as the rest of the album, but it still brings the power to what you're going to hear coming ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and if I'm terrible with names, always have been. This is the one that starts acoustic, right? It's got the acoustic
Yes.
little intro. Yeah, so that one has always been one of my kind of go-to. I think it's an A minor is where that's played on the guitar, and that this song in particular actually inspired me. If you ever hear the song, you'll go, "That son of a bitch ripped it." Um, it inspired a lot of my personal stuff, a lot of Nana Winston stuff. Um, may not be so obvious, whatever, but this song in particular has been a big, big influence in my musical ambitions.
And then we come to an instrumental leading up to the final track, which is the funeral portrait, which is just basically to me is a part of the title track, but I think they separated it as a lean into the track.
Are you talk? Did you jump one ahead? So "Patterns in the Ivy" is the instrumental.
Oh, yes, my bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're right.
No, you're good. Yeah, yeah. I was like, I don't remember. Was that instrumental? It may have been, and I didn't fucking pay attention. I've listened to this shit for 25 years, and like I said, I don't know the words to any of these. So
No, you're right. It's the funeral portrait is actually the most chaotic track on the album. Um
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
and it really the song couldn't be placed anywhere else because of its chaotic nature and its structure, but it hits you like a freight train.
I think that's another thing that Opeth does well. In concepting an album, I think they're very intentional on track placement, and it's not willy nilly type BS. I'm sure they think about where to put songs as much as I do how to write the songs. And moving forward to the song after this, Patterns in the Ivy, it's it's a it's a good little bit of a palate cleanse.
Sure.
Patterns in the Ivy is to this one because this one just it just makes you raw, so
Right. And as I was saying, Patterns of Ivy is this to me a way of introducing the title track and saying the tone to where we're going to go and that we are going to something that is final.
it makes sense, whatever. I when I grew up with this when I grew up with Opeth, I for the probably the first 10 years, dude, I'm not even shitting you. I didn't look up what they look like. I didn't read anything about him. I just sat and enjoyed his voice, and that might be a big reason why I liked him so much.
Mhm.
Is because there was like no pretense. I didn't go back and research him, and I truly didn't. I didn't, it's funny, and I'm not trying to be mean, but the first time I saw Michael Lagerfeld, I went, "What the fuck?"
Right.
It was. I mean, he's just a goofy looking guy, and the older he gets, the more kind of normal looking he is. Like most of us do that anyway. But when he was younger, um, doing and they did this album, going back and looking at all that stuff. I mean, they just look goofy, and you wouldn't think that any of these guys don't like to judge books, but like it's almost like they had some extra help writing this stuff. But they were just super talented, super passionate kids. And going back to the whole Patterns in the Ivy thing, they said that Steve Wilson pushed for this kind of negative space in the album, which I'm not a big fan of a lot of stuff that Steven Wilson does. I'm the first to admit, but the son of a gun has good ideas sometimes, and
Sure.
and he knew what he was doing. He knows what he's doing, obviously, but he knew what he was doing in this album. He knew where to put that. That was really good. That was a really good placement for this track.
Yeah, and he's always had good sound knowledge. Look at all the albums, the classic albums that he's helped put different versions of out there and provide a different insight to the album.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And and it always I the thing I've always wondered about them is that where did these complex ideas come from this young? I mean, it's almost prodigy in nature.
Yeah, it is, and I think there was a lot of that going around in Europe, in those countries at the time. One of I'm not big on like dark satanic metal and stuff like that anymore, um, but one of the ones that comes to mind is Emperor and
Mhm.
especially Dissection, the Somber Lane by Dissection. I mean, that's just, I think those guys were like 17 when they wrote that shit, and it was just like, what the heck? Children of Bodom, their
Yeah.
first album was what was, he was like 17 when they did that. And I'm like, dude, when I was 17, I couldn't put my finger in my ass on the first fucking try. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And these guys whip out these masterpieces like they've been classically trained. And I think Alexi was, whatever. I don't know about Michael's musical background, and I don't know about any of the other guys in the band. But yeah, man, I want what they're smoking.
Right. And and the title track puts it all together. It sums up the fact that, you know, no matter in my summation of it, no matter what time you're in, no matter what place you're in, the fact of the matter is, this world has always been a dark place in certain areas, and it's because of humankind itself, because we're conditioned to self-destruct.
Well, I think writing about it as an outlet and letting that be the catharsis versus other forms of emoting are a lot safer, and you get to capture it and you get to mature past it, and maybe you become indifferent to it when you get older, or maybe you look back and maybe they look back and go, God, can you believe we wrote that? Or
Right.
I don't know, um I've always said as a musician that writing about something and capturing how you feel about the world or a situation at that time is probably the most cathartic, and um, I think it's one of the best things you can do, honestly. And maybe that's what they did here. And I mean, it's like I said before we started recording, all of their stuff is lightning in a bottle. I don't
Sure.
know how they're doing it, you know, often imitated, never replicated type of situation.
Right.
I'm very guilty of being, an Opeth. Oh, can you see that? I'm
Yeah.
very guilty of being an Opeth fan, and letting that bleed into my music. And that's not so much trying to copy these guys as much as it is trying to pay homage to them. You
Sure.
know, they deserve it. They deserve every bit of it that everybody gives them. They're kings, dude.
And I think one of the reasons this album has stood up so well over time is because of the overall theme of it. You know, it's masterfully musically, but the story is ongoing. It's something that never ends. And the story will be true till the end of time.
Yeah, kind of an evergreen topic. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, I've never really thought of it that way. I've always considered it, just from a musical standpoint, that it was built on such strong foundations. Of
Mm,
course, they had what 4 or 5 albums leading up to this, and they didn't have. There wasn't a weak spot in
right.
any of that. I mean, from maybe their first two albums suffered from maybe some production qualities or stuff like that, or mastering or whatever you want to call it, but musically, I mean, these guys knew what the hell they were doing, what they wanted. And this it's funny because this album's 25 years old, and at that time, listening to that versus listening to something 10 years prior to that,
Sure.
they had matured so much
Oh, yeah.
by then, even by the previous album, by Still Life. And Still Life, I thought was just to this day, it'll always just hold up. But you can't knock down Opeth. You just can't. You can't beat them.
And here we are all these years later, and they're on the road as we speak.
It's crazy. It's so crazy, man. Yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing them in 2008 with Baroness and High on Fire, and I'm not gonna lie, it was the worst show I've ever attended. Whatever it was, in Austin, Texas, and nobody was on their A game. Opeth didn't seem like they wanted to be there. It was right after Watershed came out, and I'm sure they were tired of touring and this and that. But it was a very disappointing show. Luckily, I got to hear songs from this album, and of course, they played "Window Pane," which is one of my favorite
Right.
tracks. Whatever, but um, yeah, they're not one of those bands that I would go see again and stand up and mosh to it. And now that may be the 40-something-year-old me, but they're one of the ones that I want to sit back and on an upper, balcony or whatever, and just relax and
Sure.
just space out, man.
Yeah, and take in the talent that they present because there's no doubt about it. Musically, this is one of the most powerful displays of talent, that in my collection. If I was to put them in, I would put this album within my top 50 albums of all time.
Wow, yeah, I mean, it's accurate. Opus in all of my top, you know, um, fucking Damnation's a desert island album for me. So, I mean, it's in my top five, top 10, and yeah, I've always, there's something very distinct and mysterious about the sounds, the chord progressions, and the shapes that they used. Um, on this album versus some of the other ones. They've got some of the other flavors and flair that this one has, but this one kind of stands out. And this is the last one that they did. I no, I take that back. Like I said, I'm terrible with names. Did so it's Blackwater Park and Damnation, and there was a
Mhm.
damn another one that came out. It had Master's Apprentice on it. And I can't remember what the hell it's called. I'm a terrible fan, dude. I told you, I'm just it's my autism working OT, man. Yeah, it, we've gotten lucky. I don't like new Opeth. Like I really don't. I don't like new Opeth at all. Past after Watershed, and even Watershed's just kind of got some I don't know. When you put out stuff like this
Mhm.
so much, I understand wanting to change up. I'm not knocking their new shit's good. It's just not for me. You know what I
Right.
mean? I don't want to be like those tired old people that just want to knock Metallica for doing the new stuff when they did it. I get it, but they did new stuff, and you know a lot of people liked it. A lot of people hated it. And it's kind of the same way I know my buddy Cody's going to give me so much shit for that, but I'm an old Opeth head. I don't like any of the new stuff. Now, you and him, y'all can talk about prog and all that shit all day long, but
Sure.
it's almost kind of too funky. And I have a hard time fucking keeping on track anyway with my ADD. So that stuff is all over the place to me. It's really hard to follow for me. But this dude, you'll probably give it a 10 out of 10 also, but yeah, I'm smacking this some bitch with a 10. So it's a great album. What made you pick it?
Well, the reason I picked it is it's in my top 50. I know you're an Opeth head. And one thing that we didn't mention that I do want to mention, and listening to it now, the production on this album is as good as anything that's out today.
Oh
Anything.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if Wilson had anything to do with the clarity and all that stuff, but I mean, yeah, why would you want to overproduce something? I'm
On
guilty of it.
my system, on some of them acoustic parts, I can actually hear the pick on the string.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that speaks a lot to how they run their rigs too. I mean, they don't run a whole hell of a lot of gain, and
Mm.
I remember discovering that because coming from a Pantera Dimebag Darrell background, that son of a bitch has his amp set on 10. Well, Opeth comes in, and I remember getting a modeler years ago that had a patch for